Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jenna Jabara, and I am an attorney here at Lira Bravo. And I want to thank everybody who's here with us this afternoon live and those who might be watching later. I am going to answer your questions, your immigration questions today. And I'll be answering questions in English primarily, but if you do have questions in Spanish, don't hesitate. You can drop them in the comments as well. But for those joining us today, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about immigration topics. Just type your answers into the comments and I can see them and respond. So, estoy en vivo hoy en inglés, pero también si tiene preguntas en español, pues puede dejarlos en los comentarios, pero la mayoría sería en inglés hoy. Okay, so it is so great to be with you guys this afternoon. One thing that I wanted to talk about today, especially for those who are joining us, is DACA, okay? And specifically, one really important thing right now with DACA is advanced parole. And so I wanted to kind of start our conversation today speaking about DACA advanced parole and the importance when you can use it, to give some examples, because it's this thing that exists that is, even in my experience, a lot of our clients who have DACA, they kind of know about it, but they don't really, and they're not really sure what questions to ask. So what is DACA advanced parole? Let's start there, okay? So advanced parole is used in a lot of different immigration contexts, but DACA advanced parole is obviously for people who have DACA status, right? So our dreamers. And people with DACA, with valid DACA, can apply for advanced parole. Advanced parole, very simply, is a permit to leave the United States and to re-enter, right? So it's a permit to travel abroad, okay? And it can be to any country, right? A lot of people think that they have to use advanced parole to travel back to their home country, and that's not always the case. I've had clients who are from Mexico who use it to travel to the UK, basically anywhere in the world, right? That is not the United States, okay? So with DACA advanced parole, you can get a permit to travel for a short period of time outside the United States, and you leave with it, and then you re-enter with that permit, okay? And with DACA, one thing that's pretty unique about DACA is that in the DACA, FAQs and everything that governs DACA, there are specific reasons to request DACA advanced parole, okay? And those specific reasons, there are three kind of umbrella reasons, we'll say, okay? And those three reasons are humanitarian reasons, educational reasons, or work-related reasons, okay? So your trip that you want to make can be to any country, but it has to fall within one of those three categories, okay? And I've seen all categories, really. And we have cases pending right now under all those categories. But obviously the most common that we see is humanitarian, okay? So I'll give you some examples of each reason. And let's start with humanitarian because that's kind of, like I said, our most common. So a humanitarian reason for requesting a DACA advanced parole is typically because you have a family member who lives outside of the United States and you want to travel to visit them. And so, and usually they are an elderly family member, somebody who's sick, or who is getting medical treatment. And you would, request that advanced parole to be able to go visit them, okay? The most common situation I can tell you is usually a grandparent, right? A lot of times for people who have DACA, they haven't seen, their grandparent in their home country since they were really little. Some clients, it's been 20, 30 years since they've seen a grandparent that they were really close to, a grandparent who raised them and who, they're really close to. and that grandparent is aging, and they want to be able to go visit their grandparent before they pass away. I've also had clients whose grandparents were diagnosed with very advanced cancer, and can no longer travel. And so DACA Advance Parole gives them the opportunity to go visit that family member, and see them before they pass away. And that can be a really meaningful trip. It is often a really meaningful trip. And that's really important to be able to go visit a family member that you haven't seen in years, especially if they're really ill. So that can be one reason. It doesn't have to just be a grandparent, right? We have clients who are really close to their aunts or uncles, who helped raise them, and they want to go visit their aunts and uncles. And that's a completely valid reason as well. Clients whose own parents, right, for whatever reason, either remained in their home country or have since gone back to their home country. And again, they've been separated from those parents. Parents are aging, parents are sick, whatever, and they want to go visit. And those are really, again, important trips. Those are humanitarian reasons for requesting DACA Advance Parole. Totally valid and great reasons to travel. The other two reasons that we use, or the other two kind of umbrella categories, are work-related or educational. So work-related, we often see used when you work for a company that's closing a deal in another country, and they need you in your role as an employee, or whatever role you have in that company, to go and help close that deal. We've also seen it in situations where there's a training outside the United States that your company wants you to attend or to give or present at. Or maybe they want you to go make a site visit to an office that they have abroad. And again, doesn't have to be in your own home country, right? So you can be, from El Salvador, and your company has, an office in, Europe, and they want you to go, accomplish a task there. And so that would be a work-related reason. There can be a lot of work-related reasons, especially as, with big global companies and stuff like that need you to travel. The third is educational. And the typical way that we see that one play out is some type of study abroad program, or a short, educational related trip, right? So, a lot of times we'll see this over the summer, where it's like a couple weeks, and, you're going to, do this class or course that will help you obtain your degree, or is crucial for your degree or your educational experience. And so that's a really important reason to request DACA as well. And we have those cases as well. So, and again, educational doesn't have to be necessarily going to your home country. So I really encourage people to kind of think outside the box and think about what's possible, because I think a lot of people, when they have DACA, they kind of shut down these ideas because they think, oh, I can't go, I can't do whatever. But there are ways to still go about doing it. And advanced parole is that way, right? And it's a really wonderful way. A lot of times people ask how long it takes for the advanced parole document to get approved. And I like to give the estimate of about 6 months. Okay. So from the time that we submit that application until you get that document, you're looking at about 6 months. Then, usually it's I think probably like a month to 6 weeks after is when the document becomes valid. And you can then, you have, again, another window of opportunity in which to travel. And it's just for one trip. Right. So you kind of want to, when you're making these plans, whether it's to go visit a family member, for work, for whatever reason, you want to be able to back it out, and allow plenty of time. Right. So you want to be having these conversations with an attorney, well in advance. I'm so sorry. So that's really important. There is, that being said, there is a way for us to request emergency advance parole. And so if we can show that there's a justifiable emergent reason for travel, we can process those faster. For example, I've had a client before whose relative was actually, had been given a certain period of time to live. And basically the family had been told, if you want to come say goodbye, you need to come now. And so we were able to successfully get emergency advance parole, and that was really wonderful because then they could travel and say their goodbyes. And again, I'm very close to I was very close to my own grandparents growing up. And so to me, that's a really meaningful thing to be able to do. We can do emergency advance parole, and sometimes emergency advance parole just based on, there's a lot of moving parts, obviously. And, we like to get a good packet together and stuff like that to make sure it's really successful, but those can be approved, in a couple of weeks. And you can be ready to travel in a couple of weeks, with the right justifications and stuff like that. So, timing is really important, obviously. Super important for any kind of travel, right? But for this type of travel where you're requesting an additional permit, it's very important. Okay. And it's important that you only travel once that advance parole is approved, and within the validity dates, right? Because that can be really problematic. One of the questions I get asked a lot, and of course, for anybody who's watching, please type your comments into the comment box, or your questions into the comment box, and then I can respond to them directly. If you have specific questions. One of the questions I get asked a lot is because, for a lot of people who are applying for advanced parole, this is one of the first times that they've left the United States in many years, right? And that can be really overwhelming and very stressful. And there can be a lot of questions and uncertainty about, like, well, what happens? Like, how am I sure that I will be allowed back in? And it can be even a little bit more jarring because when you get the advanced parole approval document, it actually says, this is not guaranteed. It's still up to the discretion of Border Patrol to allow you to re-enter upon re-entry. And that can be super unnerving, super anxiety producing for a lot of people. So it's important that if you're considering DACA advanced parole, or any type of advanced parole, really, that you are screened by an immigration attorney before you leave. That's a really important part of what we do with DACA advanced parole and with our clients who are requesting it, is we screen it. We screen you and we make sure that there are no legal impediments to you being able to return. Okay. In immigration law, those are called inadmissibility issues, right? But basically, as attorneys, and we have 5 wonderful attorneys here on our staff that are looking for this kind of stuff all the time. But you have an attorney who goes through and who says, like, okay, you, before you even file, before you even open your case, yes, you're eligible to be readmitted to the United States with that advanced parole document, or no, like, you've got some other stuff here that we either need to, fix ahead of time, or no, it's not a good idea at all for you to travel because you'll have issues upon reentry. And that is super important because in the past, DACA has been around now for going on this summer, it'll be 12 years. No, sorry, bad math. This summer, it'll be 11 years. DACA has been around for a while, and advanced parole has been around for a while too. And there have been plenty of stories in the media about, individuals who requested DACA advanced parole who traveled and who were not allowed to reenter. And I think a lot of the times the questions that I get in consults are related to that. Like, how do you know? How can I be sure that I will be allowed to reenter? And the response that I give is always, I cannot guarantee something, 100%, but my job is to screen you and make sure that you are, ready to go and that you won't have any issues. Right. And so, that's a really important part of what we do as attorneys is, number one, looking at that first piece, the reasons for leaving and reentering. But number two, and most of the time more important for a lot of our clients is, can I come back in the United States? Will I have any issue when I get to Border Patrol or when I get to the airport, and I'm coming back in? And I think that's a really important part of our job. So that's kind of, again, first thing that we kind of look at is, are those 2 main issues, right? What are your reasons for leaving? And then also, are you admissible? Because if you're not admissible, then we don't want you to go. Okay. And again, that's a really crucial part of an immigration attorney. And then The last thing that I kind of want to talk about is an added benefit of DACA advanced parole. And that added benefit is that advanced parole, without going into all the legal detail and talking to you about specific case law and citing cases and things like that, because you'd probably all fall asleep at that point. The kind of nice thing about DACA advanced parole is that it can give you, if you don't already have it, DACA advanced parole can give you a lawful entry, right? An entry, an authorized entry by immigration. And an authorized entry can really make a lot of immigration processes in the future much simpler, easier, and more, comfortable, I'll say, for the applicant. If somebody doesn't have a lawful entry, there are only certain ways that they can, there's only really one way without a lawful entry that you can adjust status here in the United States without having to return to your home country. Whereas if you have a lawful entry, a lot of times, you may be eligible, based on who's petitioning for you in different aspects to adjust status here in the United States. And so kind of the extra benefit here to DACA advanced parole is that it can give you that lawful entry. And that's really important. Even if you don't have somebody available to petition for you right now, a lawful entry can set you up better in the future to make any future processes simpler, right? So, it might not be something that you're thinking about right this minute, but again, in order to take, those steps to set yourself up in the future, if you have one of those reasons already for traveling, it's a great benefit. And it's totally doable. It's something that I feel like, again, a lot of people kind of shut down the option because they think that it's going to be too difficult, or they don't qualify, or, they're worried. And the most important part there is to just have the conversations with an immigration attorney who can tell you, yes, this is a possibility, or, you know what, no, maybe better not. And that's okay. Like, it's better to have those conversations with an immigration attorney, and get your answers, get answers to your questions. So with that being said, I haven't put up our number the whole time that I've been chatting about DACA advanced parole so far. And so I want to make sure that I put our number up here on the screen. And of course, our little prompt today is in Spanish, but it has the phone number there. Our phone number is 214-390-6294. And you can always call and schedule a consult. I love doing DACA advanced parole consults because it's really great to be able to, I shouldn't have taken it down so soon. It's a really great option and a way to, talk about opportunities and things that you maybe, especially, if you have DACA and you've had DACA for, since 2012, 2013, these are things that you probably heard about, but you maybe never have, really paid a lot of attention to, or again, considered for yourself. And it's important that you be able to, take advantage of this, especially if it is, gonna be something that's meaningful to you in a way that you can, again, see an aging family member, or take that step in your career that you need to, that requires some kind of travel, or advance your education in a way that's really meaningful through study abroad. They're all really wonderful things to do, and really wonderful reasons to take advantage of DACA advanced parole. And so it's super important. So we haven't had a lot of questions about advanced parole, but again, I just want to reiterate that if you have questions about DACA advanced parole, or about any topic, feel free to put them in the comments, and I am happy to respond. But again, DACA advanced parole is really, again, a wonderful thing, an option for anybody who has DACA to at least be screened for. Again, like, it's super important to be able to have that conversation and decide, get all of your doubts kind of cleared up, and then make the best decision for you, whether it's right or not. So DACA advanced parole. I wanted to answer one other question, especially kind of taking advantage of this Facebook Live and English session that I get sometimes from some of our U.S. citizen petitioners. So switching gears, we're kind of putting DACA aside for a minute. We're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about when a U.S. citizen wants to petition for a spouse, okay, specifically. And one of the questions that I get a lot of times when I'm talking to a young, not young, but a newlywed couple, right? Somebody, a couple who has just gotten married, is that they want to know how long after they get married they have to wait to petition for their spouse. Okay, so it's usually, like either the U.S. citizen or the intending, we call them, the intending immigrant, the person who's wanting to come to the United States or to get a green card. A lot of times people want to know how long after the marriage they need to wait to file that petition. And the truth is that there's no set time, right? There's nothing in immigration law that says, oh, you have to wait 6 months after getting married to be petitioned, or you have to wait 2 years or whatever. And a lot of times when I'm doing consults with couples, they'll say like, well, I heard, that you have to wait 2 years. And that is not true. A lot of times the 2 year, I think where the 2 year comes from is that if you do petition for your spouse and you get your green card within the first 2 years of marriage, you're going to get a little bit different of a green card and it's going to have a different code and it's only going to be valid for 2 years. And that's fine. And there are different aspects of that you can talk about, but you don't have to wait 2 years to petition for your spouse. And so it's really important, again, to have those conversations with an immigration attorney early on, whether it's when you are planning to get married and having those conversations so you know what you're looking at in the future, or right after you've gotten married. There are plenty of couples who are together for many years before they decide to get married. And then once they get married, we file right away. The most important part to us as attorneys and to immigration is your marriage bona fide, right? And that is kind of the term that's used in immigration law to determine whether or not, you guys are really married because you love each other and you want to create a life together, or if you're just married for immigration paperwork. And that's more focused on, the details of your relationship than time, right? You can be a newlywed and, and have just gotten married last month, but you've been together for, 5-6 years. And that doesn't make, just because you just got married doesn't make your marriage any less valid. So, again, if you're thinking about getting married, if you've just gotten married, or even if you've been married for many years, it never hurts to talk to us. And we are happy to explain the ins and outs specific to your situation. I did get one question in Spanish. In Spanish. So I'm gonna kind of do a little back and forth and give it to you in both English and Spanish since we have a few minutes left today. So the question is, hi, can I petition for my parents if they entered the country without status, but they have children born here, and if they can adjust that, if they can fix their paperwork, we'll say, can they do so here in the United States? And that's a really important question, and it's a question that we get a lot, right? And here's the answer. The answer is sometimes, maybe. What it is in this situation, what we assess is, again, how the individual entered the United States. Has anybody ever petitioned for them before? And do they have any other family members who are citizens or residents? Okay. Because if they enter the United States without status, and if you enter the United States without status, there's only one way that you can fix your status here in the United States. And that's through an exception in the law called 245I, where somebody petitioned for you before April 30th of 2001, and you've been here since December 2000. And that's kind of general. you can sometimes adjust status here within the United States. If not, we're looking at potentially, the individual having to go back to their home country in order to get their permanent resident status. And if that's the case, and they've been here without status for some time, they would need a waiver, okay? And the catch here is that if somebody needs a waiver because they've spent time here in the United States without status, while your kids can petition for you, your kids are not qualifying relatives for purposes of a waiver. The only individuals that can do waivers for you are your own parents who are citizens or residents, or a spouse who is a citizen or resident. Okay, so in those situations, we would do a petition through the kid, and then either the spouse or the parent would do the waiver, and then we can do something. And so this specific situation is one that really is important to have an attorney consult on, because sometimes we have to kind of move some different pieces around and really fit the puzzle together to make it work. So, y ahora en español. Pues la pregunta es si puedo pedir a mis papás si entraron ilegalmente a los Estados Unidos, pero tienen hijos nacidos aquí, y si pueden arreglar dentro del país. La primera pregunta en ese instrumento normalmente es la última pregunta que el señor Armando o la señora Erika había hecho, y es si pueden arreglar aquí dentro, ¿ok? Nos había dicho de que ya entraron ilegalmente a los Estados Unidos. So, normalmente, cuando uno entra ilegalmente a los Estados Unidos, no pueden arreglar dentro de los Estados Unidos. Pero hay una excepción en la ley que se llama 245I, que ofrezca oportunidad de arreglar aquí dentro de los Estados Unidos si ya tiene petición metida antes del 30 de abril de 2001 y ha sido aquí desde diciembre de 2000. ¿Okay? So, si uno es papá de un ciudadano y ya tiene esa petición metida antes por medio de un hermano, papá, mamá, como quiera, sí, quizás podemos arreglar aquí dentro, ¿ok? Pero si no, ¿ok? Es la segunda parte de la pregunta, pues la primera pregunta en la pregunta que había hecho. Ya tiene que arreglar por medio de una entrevista en su país de nacimiento, que muchas veces. Y si esa persona, el papá o la mamá que quiere arreglar, tiene presencia aquí sin permiso, ellos requieren un perdón, ¿ok? Por el tiempo que pasó aquí sin permiso, ¿ok? Si no pueden arreglar aquí dentro. Para hacer el perdón, y aquí es la cosa en que enfrentamos muchas veces, es que el hijo o la hija que es ciudadano puede pedir para sus papás, pero hijo o hija ciudadano no es pariente que puede meter un perdón para su presencia aquí sin permiso. Los únicos que pueden hacer el perdón son papá, mamá ciudadano residente o esposo o esposa ciudadano residente. ¿Ok? Son muchas veces, si uno tiene, esposo o esposa ciudadano residente, papá, mamá ciudadano residente, usamos el hijo para pedir y luego uno de esas personas para hacer el perdón. Y en esa manera ya se puede arreglar. Pero esa pregunta específicamente, o sea, ser pedido por un hijo ciudadano, es una pregunta que es muy importante tener un asesoramiento legal de un abogado de inmigración. Porque es muy detallado y muchas veces hay muchas partes que tenemos que, hacer para hacerlo correcto. Okay, so with that, y gracias por su pregunta. So with that, we are ending our time today, and I hope that you all have received some good information about DACA advanced parole, about petitioning for U.S. citizens, and then our last bilingual question today, we'll call it, about petitioning for parents. And those are all really important questions. Really great questions to go into detail, to give us a call at our office and schedule a consult so that we can go into the details of your specific case. So please call us at 214-390-6294. Like I said, we have 5 wonderful attorneys here at our office who are ready, and a whole staff of really wonderful and knowledgeable individuals who are ready to answer your questions and really help guide you through this process. So give us a call. We're waiting to talk to you. And I hope that you all have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye.